Hello and welcome to the Black Techies podcast. This is your host, Herbert Seward. This is the place where Black culture meets technology. And again, this is the second in a trifecta of interviews that I've got going on today. And this one's pretty special to me. The lady that you're looking at here on your other side of the panel is one of the biggest reasons why I'm kind of in this game as it is now. I'd like to introduce Dr. Christy Walker, the queen of Bandom, band head extraordinaire, and jack of all trades and just dopeness. Hello, Miss Walker, and welcome.
Hi, Herb. How are you doing? This is so bizarre to me because, you are a very close friend and you're like a brother to me. So it's kind of weird to have this dynamic going on, but I'm glad to be here. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, Christy, I mean, your resume speaks volumes and it's long. So let's start by you introducing yourself to the audience and telling everybody who you are.
Okay, well, I'm Dr. Christy Walker. I'm a band head. I have a career. I've worked for the past, let's say 17, 18 years in higher ed capacities, as a higher ed administrator in career services and academic advising. But just to give you a little bit about my background, I was born and raised in Hampton, Virginia, grew up around Hampton University, Norfolk State University. Both of my parents graduated from North Carolina A&T, which influenced a lot of, what you see when you're talking to me now. So, born and raised in Hampton, Virginia, grew up in a musical family. And I, always had music in my house from as long as I can remember. And, I've been involved in something musical since about 6 years old. So from piano, recorder, clarinet, which is my main instrument, know a little bit of flute. I can play a little bit of violin. I've rung handbells before. So just anything, and I've sang before. So just anything in the music realm, that is what I have been involved in. And so let's see. Once I got to college, my bachelor's degree is in chemical engineering from North Carolina A&T. While I was there, I marched in the band for 4 years, was in the symphonic band as well. I also, let's see, just going through my career, I've worked as a chemist and a chemical engineer, switched careers, ended up teaching at Norfolk State University for 2 years. That's when I realized I liked working with college students. So from there, I went into a career in education, earned my master's degree from Old Dominion University in higher ed administration, and have worked at several colleges, earned my doctorate in higher ed administration from Northeastern University. And now what I'm doing is I am a director of career services at a community college in North Carolina. I've been doing that for the past 5 years. And I'm just an overall band head. In 1999, I don't want to steal your thunder, Herb, but in 1999, Michael Lee and we created a web community for members of HBCU Bands called The Fifth Quarter. And that site ran for 20 years and it was closed in 2019. Herb actually wrote a column for The Fifth Quarter, which is, Herb and I, we go back. Two of us, we go back over 20 years. So, so I had The Fifth Quarter, and Mike and I, we did that for 20 years. And then right now, I currently have a podcast called the HBCU Band Experience with Christy Walker. And in that podcast, I just interview different bandsmen and alumni from HBCUs, and I kind of find out their stories, which ties into the book. So yeah, go ahead, Herb.
Absolutely. Now, before we really get into what the book is about, when we say that folks in the culture call Christy Walker and Mike Lee, they are innovators, point blank. The Fifth Quarter platform, for folks that have been around, that was that was the innovation that really drove our culture into the media, into the multimedia age now. You wouldn't really see, the type of interaction between students and bands and that type of knowledge without those platforms. So the fifth quarter was the granddaddy of everything. And everything that comes after it has a lineage that goes back to that site and back to the social community that really, started there. And this is part of what this book talks about as well, is that these experiences, with the book, and by the way, the folks that are found, that are behind the series of books about the HBCU experience, I'd be remiss not to mention those guys. The HBCU experience movement, those guys came to us and we had to jump on it. That was just something that, that was a deal that we couldn't refuse.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Ashley Little. I got to give her a shout out.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So first question, or rather second question, because we kind of indirectly answered one. Why was A&T your first choice?
Okay. I know you're probably going to think that it's because my parents said that. That is not true. Yes, I had two parents that marched in A&T. They met in A&T's band. They were in the they marched in alumni band for 40 consecutive years. From 1976, when the band was formed, to 2016. They did not skip a year. But a lot of people think, having that background, that I was going to be forced to go to A&T, and that actually was not the case. My parents were like, you don't have to go to A&T. However, you got to go to an HBCU, and we don't care what you do for grad school. You can go anywhere for grad school. Undergrad, you go into an HBCU. It doesn't have to be A&T, but it has to be an HBCU. The reason why I personally chose A&T was because I had grown up seeing it. I knew about the band program. It was a program that I wanted to be in. I grew up in Hampton, Virginia. So, you have Hampton University down the street, literally down the street. And then 30 minutes away, you have Norfolk State University. For me, I wanted to branch out a little bit and not go to school so close to home. So being a Virginian, North Carolina, it was a bordering state. It wasn't too far, but it was far enough that, your parents couldn't just pop up that day. It had a good mix of, so it had the major that I wanted, because I knew I wanted to do chemical engineering. So it had the major I wanted to be in. It had the band I wanted to be in. It wasn't too small of a school. It wasn't too big of a school. It was just like the right fit. So I think the combination of all of those factors made me want to go to A&T.
Now, Hampton Roads, that's kind of the nexus point for our, for our relationship as friends, because, I got reconnected to the culture, through our meeting. And what's crazy about this, in terms of this interview going full circle, is that I get a chance to finally interview one of my best friends about these experiences that we have collectively, and which is a really, really dope thing. The crazy thing is that when I got reconnected to the craft and I got into the fifth quarter, that's how I found my voice to write. And essentially how I found my voice to write was commenting on the forum, talking about a whole bunch of stuff band related. And this lady here approached me about writing a column for the forum. And it's history now, because that forum, or that column, is now, Halftime Glory, one of my offerings. And the fact of the matter is that there are so many careers in media and so many directions that spawned right there on that platform. It's ridiculous. And what would you like to tell people what they can expect from your part in this contribution to this anthology?
Well, let me start off by saying I'm kind of emotional right now, Herb, because you are one of my closest friends too, and this is very much of a full circle moment to me. I am a little bit flustered actually just because of that. But I'm gonna chill out because we're family. But as far as the book is concerned, these stories are awesome. There are 36 authors in here that have come from different programs, different experiences, different instruments. I'm so proud of this book. It's amazing. I mean, I was going through reading the stories, and it's just hard not to get caught up. You're going to be inspired by it. You're going to be, if band heads are watching this, you're going to read some things to say, hey, I can relate to that. I'm not the only one that's been through that. There are situations that are very relatable in there. And what can I bring to my contribution, my personal contribution? I talk about my band story. I don't want to give too much of it away, but I do include some nuggets that some people may not know. But I basically talk about my band story and how it progressed. And, it's hard to say something without giving it away. I don't want to give it away, but I talk about my band story and what band means to me and how it has influenced some of the things that I do today. And so I'm just really excited about it. I'm proud of everybody that contributed to it. Your story your story's awesome too, Herb. I cannot wait till it comes out. It comes out on Tuesday on Amazon. Got to pump that part up. Tuesday, you can find it on Amazon, but yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. And the fact when you initially approached me about this, you and Ash and Dr. Little, I was like, yeah, I was down before the end of the first sentence because it was something that, it was an opportunity to really share, my experience and my journey and be a part of a collective to communicate those experiences to the general public. And the cool thing about this for folks that are, that are watching the podcast and they're used to hearing about technology and Black folk is that these experiences, particularly our experience on the fifth quarter and being at the forefront of HBCU band media is the poster child of how technology impacts, perception for people, for the general public. This culture, HBCU band culture, has changed a millennia. And I mean, just from the time that we met to now, it's like been a million years in terms of the advancements that have gone on.
Can we talk about the media and how just band media has changed? Remember when we were starting, when we first connected, it was all about the audio clips. Like I was talking to somebody earlier about that, and they couldn't believe it. It was like, real player audio clips. Was it the .avi or whatever? Like those clips. And we couldn't get video clips. We didn't have the ability to do that. And I remember having to going to games, recording the audio, and then going to somebody's house, uploading the audio. And I remember in my house, we still had dial-up. And so I had to go to somebody's house who had high speed, no Wi-Fi, but high speed. So that it wouldn't take forever and a day to get a 3-minute clip up of a band playing something. So now it's evolved to bands having media teams, whole media teams, branding, YouTube channels, vlogs, you name it. And I just remember those days earlier where, you had to like jump through hoops just to get an audio clip up. And now it's like, if your band does not have a proper media team, it's kind of like you were looked at as, hey, you kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. What's wrong with your program? Your program isn't, 2020 ready. It's just, yeah. So
yeah, it's crazy. And I think when people read the book, you'll get an idea of just how wide the spectrum is in terms of these experiences. This is just what we're talking about right here. This back and forth is one part of it. And I think, as you know, and like you said earlier, we're both really excited about the book drop. The book drop is happening on the 27th, this Tuesday. And all of us are just waiting, just like this.
I'm so ready for you all as the authors to read it. I cannot wait. I want my phone to blow up. I took off that day of work because I'm like, I just want my phone to blow up. I cannot wait.
So here's another question. Why do you think that band is so instrumental in terms of the HBCU experience? I know we hear a lot about HBCU band culture now being in the forefront. Why do you think it's so important?
Well, bands are the face of the university. When it comes to marketing, when it comes to publicity, even HBCUs that do not have a band still use bands as a marketing and a selling point, because there are 40 something bands. I think there are like 41 bands, don't quote me on that, but there are 107 HBCUs, something like that. So of course, you've got a whole bunch of colleges that don't have these band programs for whatever reason. And so, they're still using the HBCU band and the residuals off of that to kind of market their experience. So like whenever, any kind of forward facing role, these schools will want an HBCU band to be involved in that. And so, I think they should be treasured at all costs, So.
Yeah. And I think, again, as people read these stories, they'll get an idea of just how precious, the history is, because I don't think there's going to be any story there where, legacy and tradition and history isn't ingrained into that story. So, like I said, like you just said, I'm excited as a contributor to be able to, pick up a book and read some of the other stories that, we've only heard about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now, what would you say in terms of your experience as a bandsman at North Carolina A&T? What's one of your most memorable performances or memories?
Oh, I talked about this in my chapter a little bit. Okay, I'll use this one. So I'm going to talk about in '94 when we faced Southern University at the Circle City Classic. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this one was because, Southern has had this long history of having great programs, and they still do. Like Southern is one of my favorite HBCU band programs. And the reason why I like them is because I really enjoy hearing that aggressive, masculine, brass sound. I really like that about them.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm not intimidated by them. So back when we played them, I do think that HBCU bands take on the personalities of their head director. And my director was the late Dr. Johnny B. Hodge. And let me tell you, this man, he's not intimidated by anybody. He didn't care. He was like, I don't care if we're the smaller band. I don't care if, we don't have the big name like Southern does. We gonna go out there and we gonna do our thing and we gonna crank on them, and we don't care. And that was the attitude that we took with them. So took with us. So when we played them in '94, there were chances and opportunities, and we took advantage of that. For example, we ended up cranking on them in downtown Indianapolis when they were standing off to the distance somewhere. We basically ran up on them and cranked on them. And I was very pleased with our performance. That was my sophomore year, and I thought overall that was a strong year for our program. I think that we all got along very well then. In band programs, it's
Yeah.
you're dealing with hundreds of people. You're not gonna jive well with every single person in that band. But I think overall, as a unit, we were very much a strong collective unit that year. And I thought the freshman class that came in was they were strong musicians, and just that trip, it was fun because I liked being in the role of the underdog because they slept on us, and so we had to represent.
Now, how would you describe your connection with your program now, in terms of following the program and in terms of keeping up with, happenings there as opposed to when you marched?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that I give back to my school every month, comes out of my check, and that money that I give is earmarked for the band. So that's number one. The second thing is that, my parents marched in alumni band, like I said earlier, for 40 consecutive years. So I have, great ties to that organization, the alumni band. We used to, well, this was before the pandemic, of course, but, we would have a cookout at the end of band camp for all of the band members, and my mom and I and my dad, we would, all three of us, serve the band, give them hot dogs and drinks and whatever. So, I just always feel like I have at least one ear on the pulse of what's going on in our program. Dr. Ruff, who is the current director at A&T, oh man, he's doing a fantastic job with that program.
Yeah.
I'm just very proud of it, and I feel like he's taken the program to higher heights. And so, just anything that I can do to support the program and just keep up with the people now. And, thanks to social media like Instagram, I follow, some of the band members on Instagram and different social media platforms, and kind of, figure out what they're up to. But yeah, so all of that.
Yeah. And I'll just say here, for, just for the sake of the nature of this conversation, seeing this lady here engage in a rivalry with a rival is one of the funniest things ever. Seeing her engage with folks from Norfolk State, or folks from Southern, or folks from the SWAC. It's really indicative of the types of relationships that you get when you engage with other people that share those same common experiences in band. And, those of you guys that are familiar with the fifth quarter and have followed its progression, from 1999 to the time they closed their doors in 2019, it's a family. And there's no other way to really describe it, whether you went to Morgan State, or whether you went to Alabama State or A&M, or you went to Bethune-Cookman. And if you know about the fifth quarter and you're on there, odds are we know you. And we know, who you are. Even, our buddy code named Cocoa Puff, that, North Carolina Central guy that was part of one of the most infamous moments of fifth quarter history on the platform. And those of you that follow the fifth quarter know exactly what we're talking about. What are you doing today in terms of your professional career, in terms of Bandom? What are some of the projects that you're involved in?
So my day job, I'm the director of career services at Durham Technical Community College. So I'm in charge of helping students transition from their programs or their certificates to the workplace. So I've been in the higher ed industry for over 15 years. So I've worked at, different kinds of colleges doing different things, but I've been at Durham Tech for the past 5 years. And, I help students with resume reviews, cover letter reviews, mock interviews. I put together the career fairs. I speak in classes, I've taught classes, just the whole 9 yards. So, that's what I do with my day job, and I like it. I still want to, continue to work in higher ed. Outside of work, I'm active in my chapter of Sigma Alpha Iota, which is a women's music fraternity. So we have a local chapter in the Raleigh Durham area. So I'm active in that. So that involves me like doing community service with a music focus. So pre the Rona, we would go and do instrument petting zoos at the library, so kids would be able to play an instrument or hold an instrument for the first time, and we would kind of help them treat it like a petting zoo, but it's an instrument petting zoo. So I do things like that. I've performed in different ensembles through SAI and outside of SAI. I'm in a community choir in which in 2017 we performed at Carnegie Hall. So that was a bucket list item for me. So I'm glad I can say I did that. And in addition to that, of course, band wise, I have the podcast, the HBCU Experience with Christy Walker. You can find it on any podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, most of the major podcast outlets. But I've been really enjoying that because, the same way that you're talking to me and interview with me, I've been interviewing different band heads. We just completed season 2. And we just completed season 2. And so we have 20 interviews. The first interview was with my mom because I wanted to find out from her. I mean, I had heard stories growing up, of course, but I wanted the people to know what it was like to march back in the 1960s, to be in an HBCU band in the 60s in comparison to, maybe the decade that they marched or even today. So I really, it took a lot out of me to complete my dissertation and get my doctorate. And so now I'm starting to like pick up on projects that I might have like left to the side, because I'm telling you, the hazing of a doctoral program is no joke. And it'll take all of your good energy. And so, now I'm just, trying to get back in the swing of things, not trying to take on too much, but so those are the big things, like the podcast. That's a huge part.
So on that topic, how would you say that your experience, and exposure to HBCU marching bands has helped you in terms of your life outside of college and as you progress through your professional life?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is just being on time. I have coworkers that, I love them. They're great people to work with, but like time is not an issue. And I'm like, my time is valuable. And then I thought about it and I was like, I think the reason why I'm on time so much is because of band. And not only that, is because I grew up that way, because my parents were in band. Because my parents are not, like late people. I think that was probably because they were in band and had to do those things. So, I think it's just kind of like trickled down, and it came to me, and then, just marching kind of reinforced that. But like, being on time and, managing different things at once, because you know how it is as a college student. You've got to manage your classes, you manage, marching the band, practicing your music, having a social life, just having to juggle all those things, I think is just really important too. So I would say the biggest things, and also I will say working in a team with people who are different from yourself. Because not everybody is going to be your yes man or yes woman. Not everybody's going to agree with you on everything all the time. So just being able to work with different groups of people, I think the band has helped me with that too.
Yeah, I would concur. I know, just speaking from my own experience, the structure that I got from my time at Alabama State, being on time, paying attention to details that you would or wouldn't ordinarily think of. It prepared me. It prepared me for military service.
Yeah.
Because this as well as I do. From our experiences, just hanging out in Hampton Roads, you had to be on time. If you were not on time, you'd suffer. And there are just so many correlations to that type of experience in terms of what you had to do to manage your time, what you had to do to really juggle, studies and extracurricular activities and marching band, because marching band was pretty time consuming. Speaking, from my experiences, particularly from the time you set foot on campus in late August, if you're part of the praying program, odds are you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, doing calisthenics, going to first practice, going to sectionals, going to second practice, maybe have a break for lunch, and then you're still dealing with upperclassmen and all that other stuff. So, those experiences mold you. And this is one thing that we're both really excited about in terms of sharing this with the public, because I don't think people have a really good grasp of what it really means to matriculate through an HBCU band program.
I have realized through this whole process that I think because I have so many friends and associates who are in the band, it's easy to forget that like not everybody knows about this life. And I've assumed a lot of things through this book writing process. Assume that, things were known when they really might not have been. So yeah, like it's easy to take it for granted, but I think through having this whole experience is that I'm not going to assume anymore. I've learned that I'm not going to assume anymore. I'm not going to take it for granted. But it's really a big thing that we are involved in. It's really a big deal to be in these programs and be involved in these programs. And so I mean I've learned through this whole book writing process as well. So
me too. And I think everybody that's been attached to this project, and I can't speak for everybody, but I think I can. Everybody has learned a lot about, if they're anything like us, they've learned a lot about themselves. They've learned a lot about how those experiences way back when relate to now, and just how ingrained in life they are. So in closing, what would you like for people that read the book to take from it?
I think you'll find that when you read the book, you will see that, like, although we have had these different experiences, there's just the common thread of music and being at a HBCU that runs through all of us. And I think we are more alike than we are different. And my hopes is to, have people who, students who are in high school, I hope this makes them want to march in a band, because they know that they're going to get a defining college experience if they do. And I would want for the alumni that read it, whether they marched in a band or not, to have just some pride and some, put some respect on our name. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because we've done some good things, and so just I would want alumni of different HBCUs just to stick out their chest just a little bit more, because they come from these colleges and universities. So yeah, that's what I would want.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think what I want people to get from this book is the fact that the people that are contributors to this book are part of an extended family. And that extended family is a family that anybody that reads that book can be a part of, because that's what HBCUs are. That's what, the HBCU experience, that's what the HBCU band experience is. And it's the experience of us as bandsmen is a more granular look at a cross-section of what HBCUs are. When you look at an HBCU band, you don't just see musicians, you see chemical engineering majors, you see music majors, you see biology majors, you see people that love political science, you see people from all walks of life. And that common thread is Bandom. And that's what I want people to get from the book. And I think, I'm excited that they will get it.
Yes.
Well, in closing, thank you, Dr. Walker, for being my guest. This was awesome. You know, we're gonna have to do this on another technology basis, maybe further down the road.
I know. You know, Herb is all you know what you mean to me. So we don't even need to go there. We don't even need to go there.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to keep out of my feels, man.
I know. It's so weird. It's so weird.
For those of you who are watching, thank you for joining us for the Black Techies podcast for this Black Techie Spotlight. Until next time, hail Wakanda.
Hail Wakanda.
Hail Wakanda.